What's up, Chiefs Kingdom? Noah Gray here, tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Josh's channel and check out showmefootball.com for more.
What is up, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome back to another video on my channel. My name is Josh Fann of showmefootball.com and arrowheadaddict.com, covering your Kansas City Chiefs. And tonight I am joined by my good friend Michael D'Arcy of KC Sports Report. And today we're going to talk about quarterback Carson Wentz making his first start for the Kansas City Chiefs this weekend against the Denver Broncos in the last game of the regular season. Michael, obviously, this is going to be the first time we've seen Carson Wentz start for the Kansas City Chiefs. We've seen him play a little bit. He played a little bit against the Cleveland Browns after Mahomes came out of that game. But besides that, really have not gotten to see him spin it for the Chiefs. And I've been wanting to see him play. You would kind of hope that the Chiefs would have had more blowouts by now so that we could have seen Carson Wentz. And I've been really interested in seeing him because I think he's the most talented backup they've ever had for Patrick Mahomes, the guy with the biggest pedigree out of all of the backup quarterbacks they've had since Mahomes has been here. This is a guy that's thrown for a lot of yards in his career, has had a lot of success, played at an MVP level before. You can't say that about a Chad Henne or a Blaine Gabbert, any of those guys. Carson Wentz is on a different level. I think he can play a little bit. It'll be nice to get him some reps here before the postseason, just in case he has to come in at any point. But Michael, we're going to kind of talk about his outlook for the future, because I think this is an opportunity for Carson Wentz to show what he has after spending a year in Andy Reid's offense and potentially play for a spot on another team in 2025. So first off, Michael, what are your expectations for Carson Wentz in this game?
You know, my expectations don't necessarily fall under any stats. I'm not saying, okay, I'm expecting him to go out there and throw for 250 yards and a couple touchdowns. I'm not expecting any, statistics really in particular. I am expecting him to go out there and control and run the offense that Andy Reid gives him, because at the end of the day, that's really all as a backup quarterback Carson Wentz can go out there and do. Just go execute the game plan that Andy Reid has spent 10 days crafting up for you. And I think that Andy Reid's going to put Carson Wentz in a good position to be successful. And if he can just, follow what Andy Reid says to a T and just go out there and make a couple big time throws and then just, hand the ball off and just do what is asked of him, he is going to impress. The Chiefs are going to win, and he's going to get a job in the NFL next year.
Let me ask you this as a follow-up. Do you think Carson Wentz deserves to be a starting quarterback in the NFL? Do you think he still has that capability in him to go start somewhere else?
I feel like the answer to that is definitely yes. I mean, we have guys like Will Levis and, Anthony Richardson starting on a consistent basis. So I do think that Carson Wentz could be a starting quarterback again in the NFL. Now, what level of starting quarterback? That's up for interpretation. I don't know if he's going to ever be the Carson Wentz that he was back in 2017, but there is a chance that if he goes out there on Sunday and performs, moderately well, a team is going to view this as oh my gosh, he just sat behind Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, maybe just won a Super Bowl, coming off of a Super Bowl win, wishful thinking here, but he was able to sit behind the best quarterback on the planet, sit behind the best head coach currently coaching. Like, the knowledge that he's going to be able to absorb going into next year is going to make some team give him a deal. I don't know what team that would be, but there's enough bad starting quarterbacks in this league that he would get a shot.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I hope for his sake that he has a little bit more control over where he goes. It felt like over the last few years that he went to teams, anyone that would take him to try and compete for a starting spot. Whereas if he goes out in this game, looks really good, shows what he can do with the arm with these Chiefs weapons, maybe he'll kind of have a few options this offseason, so he goes somewhere that's a better situation for him, because they were not great situations for him on the Washington football team or the Indianapolis Colts. Those were lower end starting quarterback jobs at the time. So maybe if he goes out there and looks really good, he'll have a little bit more of a choice of where he can go rather than just going to the first team or the only team that offers him a starting quarterback job. I could see him going somewhere, and I don't have a team off the top of my head, somewhere, though, that is looking for a bridge quarterback for a year or two while they have a rookie or a young guy that sits behind him.
Raiders?
Yeah, I mean, that could be a team. I also was reading an article earlier today saying that the Pittsburgh Steelers could potentially bring him in this offseason. That would be an interesting one, assuming that they're done with Russell Wilson and the Justin Fields experiment maybe is over, and maybe they look for another bridge quarterback and then maybe enter their name into the mix next year's draft, something like that. I could definitely see that happening.
Yeah, no, I could definitely see him going to, a team like Pittsburgh. I think a situation where Carson Wentz could really thrive is something like a Minnesota Vikings situation with Sam Darnold, where the coaching has just been fantastic. And, Kevin O'Connell has put Sam Darnold in a position to be so successful, giving him, the weapons on offense, giving him the type of coaching that he needs. I'm not saying that Carson Wentz is going to get that type of a job, but if he can go somewhere similar to a Minnesota Vikings or, where he's at right now in the Kansas City Chiefs that has a good coaching staff, has a good culture, that's the best position for him. And there's teams out there that might give him a look. He doesn't want to be signing up to be the quarterback of the New York Giants, or, I'd argue he doesn't want to be the Raiders quarterback either, with how their franchise has been run in the coaching staff and all the mismanagement they've had there. But I feel like he is going to have an opportunity. Like you said, if he does play well on Sunday, there's going to be more than one team that wants to give him a job, and he can kind of weigh his options from there.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. Another thing too, and this could be a whole nother conversation, but if Matt Nagy is to get head coaching interest somewhere again this offseason, which some people have talked about, and I don't know what job that would be, but if Matt Nagy potentially becomes the head coach somewhere and that place needs a bridge quarterback, that would seem like an ideal landing spot for Carson Wentz.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that Matt Nagy might take Carson Wentz, knowing what he's like in the offense. And I mean, he's seen him at practice every single day. So like that could be a potential fit. And, I selfishly, I would love to keep Carson Wentz as a backup quarterback because, again, he's the best backup quarterback that you've had with Patrick Mahomes. And I feel like Andy Reid, still with Mahomes, wants to give him someone that is older than him or like at least been playing in the league longer. That he wants someone like that to back him up. But we're starting to run out of players that could back Patrick Mahomes up that have been in the league longer than he has. But it is interesting to see that, a year and a half ago, nobody wanted Carson Wentz, and he's a good game away from having multiple teams interested.
Yeah, I mean, it only takes one game, man. It only takes one game for a team to look at you and say, hey, there's still something here. And I think that could definitely happen with Carson Wentz. I've always been of the belief that he's still very talented. For whatever reason, it didn't work out in Philly long term. And he got some shots here and there at some not so great teams. That's my whole thing with Carson Wentz is he was in some not so great situations over the last few years before coming to Kansas City. And I think that's part of the reason why he came here. He wanted a stable situation where, he could spend a year in a really good offense, learning under a great head coach, and maybe put his name back out there in free agency next offseason. But Michael, my last question for you before we wrap this video up is, what's the stat line prediction you have for Carson Wentz this weekend against the Denver Broncos? And I guess a lot of that is dependent on how much he actually plays, because we have heard that we might see some Chris Oladokun in this game as well.
220 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and
an interception, let me guess.
I don't want. Yeah, he's going to throw at least one interception. Yeah. I didn't want to say that, but I feel like he'll probably throw.
Yeah, it just feels like a natural stat line for him.
Yeah, but hey, 220 and 2, I'll take that right now.
With the B team offense, with 2 brand new offensive tackles, I mean, and against a team that's like fighting for their playoff life, I mean, that's not bad. Assuming they come out the victory as well.
Yeah, I was going to say he's going to put you in a position to win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think he'll take that. And if he can do that, then I think he'll set himself up very nicely heading into this offseason.
That's the hope. I mean, it's the hope for him. I don't know if I want him doing that because, again, I think
I'd
he's
love to
someone
keep
that
him around.
if you
Yeah.
compare him long term, like we're never going to have to be like, oh my gosh, who's our backup quarterback? Who is it going to be?
Yeah, for sure. No, that would be the perfect situation, but we'll see what happens. But guys, that's all we have for this video. But leave down in the comments, what kind of performance do you think Carson Wentz will have this weekend against the Denver Broncos? What's a stat line prediction that you guys have in mind for him? Would love to hear from you guys. But that's all we have in this video. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe so more Chiefs fans can find this. And then lastly, Michael, where can the people find you?
You guys can find me on YouTube at KC Sports Report. That's kind of the one-stop shop for everything that I do. You can also check out my work on the AFC West Roundtable. That's what we've kind of referenced in a couple of videos. I do stuff each and every single week with some other AFC West fans talking Broncos, Raiders, Chiefs, and a little bit of Chargers as well. So you can definitely find me over at the AFC West Roundtable too.
And there you guys have it. And that will all be in the description down below. As always, make sure you check out my work on showmefootball.com and arrowheadaddict.com. Follow me on Twitter at showmefb. That's all we got for you guys. We're signing off. And as always, go Chiefs.